You're listening to Orange Pulp here with, on my left, as we wanted to do a body change of just switching chairs. On my left, now it is big time Timmy John.
Who's a better version of Zach? Now that I've switched to the other side. Is Zach a better version of me?
So does that make you a better version of Tim or a lesser version of Tim?
Maybe it's just a lesser version of me.
Well,
I don't know. And does anybody actually know what side we sit on?
I feel like
I've ever mentioned that before?
I think I referenced it the first time.
People are envisioning what it looks like.
And then on my right, like the voice you hear, we have Zach, and then our guest talker. We're gonna try to see is, well, I already got the glare, so apparently we're not going to have a guest talker. We're gonna try to talk it into it, but.
Brian, you want to at least throw a name out there?
Yeah, introduce her with
I
her
wasn't sure
regular
what name I was supposed to give.
Give the human name that everyone will identify with.
The human name that everyone will identify. Well, those are two entirely different things. The actual name and what people identify her as are two entirely different
Brian,
things.
what was her birth name?
Mackenzie Bedford.
There we go.
So, or as everyone knows her who goes through me, Squirtle.
I still call you Mackenzie, but anyways.
Okay. And there's no good transition here. I've got nothing. So let's just start with from awkward beginnings to, well,
an awkward loss.
Awkward beginning of the game, which was terrible to begin with. And Syracuse got routed by Florida State. Tim, my first text from you was, wow, this is getting out of hand. Maybe we should change the station.
Well, I actually had a text before that said, "Don't look now. Syracuse is up 7-0.
I did not.
And then
get
as
that
soon
text.
as that happened,
like
it
so
was
Zach's
7-7.
fault. So it's Tim's fault. See, you're on the other sides. I can't keep
It's messing everything up.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
I did not get the "Don't look now" text.
Yeah?
The first one I got was not looking pretty.
The first 5-6 minutes of the game looked like Syracuse had a chance. First of all, it was Parents' Weekend. Nobody seemed to show up to this game. I think it was only maybe like 75% full, which for Florida State is not good.
Yep.
And, Syracuse gets some early sacks on McGuire. He looks a little sloppy, just not in sync quite yet.
Well, he didn't even know he was going to start the game until hours before.
Exactly.
With that, Golson was out with a concussion, as well was Dalvin Cook.
Right.
So injury played that set up good for Syracuse.
It did, and then
early.
Syracuse gets the ball. I believe it was Devontae Strickland ran for what was it, like 60 yards on the ground, and it sets up an Eric Dungy touchdown. And you're thinking, oh, 7-0. Florida State's not really too excited to be here. They don't want to play this game. They've got a lot of backups in at critical positions. And then you blink your eyes, snap your finger, and it was a rout. Yeah.
Which you mentioned that long run that Strickland had. I looked at the box score in like the fourth quarter. He did not have another yard the rest of the game.
Yeah, he barely made it back to the line of scrimmage. Any other carries he had,
What do we make of Eric Dungy having 2 touchdowns, but really the only offense Syracuse had?
I think it's a huge concern. I mean, it's been a concern for a while, but I think when Dungy filled in for Hunt early and we saw the versatility that he had, the excitement was, wow, this kid can run, he can throw a little bit, very creative. But as time has gone on, we've seen that I don't really think he's a great passer. I mean, occasionally he'll make some good throws, but he kind of like, it's weird. He almost throws it like a dart. Like he releases the ball and then the hand just kind of stays there. He doesn't really seem to follow through. And so when you're throwing those kind of shaky passes, now it makes your offense very one-dimensional where all you can do is run. And, so you can say, well, 2 touchdowns is great, but what else do they have to show for? And that's not much.
You know who he reminds me a little bit of? He's like a really, really poor man's version of Tim Tebow.
I could see that small comparison, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like Tim Tebow, not the greatest passer in the world. Eric Dungy, not even up to that level. Both of them can run. I mean, their legs are definitely what they're known for.
Body types are not even close.
Yeah, body type's not even close.
Tebow was a tank.
Yeah.
And Dungy gets hit and gets rocked. Well, they have one thing common, the concussion and coming back to it, and then the fear every time a head injury happens that's going to happen. What do you make of the possibility of him just taking shots? Just getting hit so many times.
Well, I think we're seeing it every game, and I don't know if Syracuse is willing to do this because, there is a lot of discussion about various individuals, job security and success of the team and those kinds of things. But Like we've talked a lot about, over the years, not we here, but I mean the media in general, about shutting pitchers down due to Tommy John surgery and those kinds of things. This is a completely different injury-related piece. But do you get to a point towards the end of the season when you know there's no bowl eligibility, you put maybe Mahoney in for a couple games down the stretch and just let Eric Dungey relax and just get his body back to health? Because really for Syracuse, who knows what the agenda is going to be next year? Is Hunt going to come back on a hardship waiver to give him an additional year? Are they going to try to go with Eric Dungey? Are they going to bring someone else in? So there's just so many uncertainties long term. I wouldn't kill the kid by leaving him out there.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Also follow us on Twitter. I'm joined by Tim, Zach, and myself, Brian. We touched upon it a little bit earlier. The great pass rush in the beginning of the game, and then once they couldn't get to McGuire, the secondary is just a sieve.
The secondary, I don't know what the deal is. It's like they just have not gotten better as the season has progressed. And that's what you want to see. You want to see them get better. But it's like how many huge pass plays did they give up yesterday? That was 3 touchdowns that were...
One of them was 75 yards, yeah.
Yeah. And it was what? I can't remember the guy's name. It was McGuire to...
Rudolph was his big connection, number 15.
Yeah, Rudolph. Yeah, that's the guy I was thinking of. It was just like, can you not come up with some way to even slow this guy down?
Well, the tackling is really the issue, I think, when it comes to the secondary. And I wondered if, Syracuse this week during their practice, maybe they just released some insects and they told the safeties to just run after them, because some of that tackling on that first touchdown was like, get me a fly swatter and just kind of swipe and see if I can grab a fly or something like that. I've never seen tackling so poor in my life until that particular point. So maybe there's some hope for these guys in biology that they can dissect some insects, because they certainly can't dissect receivers.
Well, an evaluating process and on a scale for the academic world and the academic world of sports, where can we evaluate this team after 8 weeks?
Zach, you take it first. I need a break.
After 8 weeks, do you want me to give them a grade, or?
Well, you can go on. How do you rank them? Whether it's a grade, you can go offense, defense, or you can just go, how do we see this team going? Like, what is the image? 3-0 and loss.
Yeah,
after
you're right.
Loss after
3-0 looked like they were going to be a solid team this year. Nobody expected them to be great. And then the injuries hit early. They hit often. And it's just like everything that they do, they try it, and it doesn't work. And then the one good thing about a lot of these losses is they're basically in the game for most of them, except for yesterday.
USF earlier this season.
Oh, USF, you could say that, yeah. But I think that this has been a really good growing season for this team because of how young the team is. It's gotten a lot of guys, a lot of experience in like those big match games. But I would have, if I was going to grade this team, I would have problems giving them anything better than like a C- overall.
So you're on a Kermitas grade scale?
Yes. I would give...
I think that's just General Newhouse grade scale.
Yeah, I think so, actually. I think that the offense is probably okay, especially the running game. When they can get that going, the running game is pretty solid. That's a solid B+. Passing game, like we've already touched on, it's shaky. It's all over the place. Defense... their rushing defense early in the season was really good, and now it's like they can't stop the run. So their defense is really what's hurting them.
Tim, what do you got on it?
Well, I think max, as far as Syracuse is going to go at this point, is maybe to scrape out one more win, 2 on a miracle level to finish 4-8, 5-7, kind of just shy of the bowl. But I think whether you're in the athletic department or you're in the community, you really have to evaluate what's the end game here. Do you say, okay, we've got a whole lot of young freshmen, including true freshmen that have played this year, and do we want to just let them grow and see what they could be in 2 or 3 years? I mean, you take Temple as an example, who was really not on the map at all as a bottom feeder in NCAA football, and they let these guys grow, and this may be just like a one-and-done year for them. Maybe the Owls are not good after this year's over with, but they allowed that process of growth to happen, and now look, I know they lost a heartbreaker to Notre Dame last night.
We'll be touching more on that later.
But that could be one goal. But you still have that old guard that remembers Syracuse from like the late 50s to 2000, and they want wins. They expect it to be like the Yankees or the Dodgers or whomever else. That's how they feel around here. So I just wonder which school of thought is going to win out in this. Is it going to be Coach Schaefer does a lot of great things with this program. You want to keep the program in his image. I don't know what his relationship is with the athletic director, Mark Coyle. So whatever schools of thought wins out, I think that kind of determines how the regular season goes.
You talked on Schaefer. Where do you see his job status being?
Well, I mean, when I talked to Anish Shroff last week, he said, I think that Coach Schaefer is a really good guy. I think he's a good coach, and he's doing a lot of good things with the program. But if they can't pull out at least one, maybe two more wins, I'm not sure that he's coming back next year.
Tim,
and Tim, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You said you think that they can probably get another win, 2 on a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the one team that you think they can take out?
BC holds people down a lot, and they have very low-scoring games, but BC struggles to score. And the fact that game is here in Syracuse, yep. I think that's a possible potential. I don't want to say anything about NC State, but because NC State is much better than Syracuse regardless of who they played early, that would be like one other game I think maybe could happen. But I know they're not going to beat Louisville. I know they're not going to beat Clemson. So that's why it's like they have a chance for 1.5 wins. Maybe they beat BC and then they win the first half against North Carolina State. So.
I can't wait for that experience. If Syracuse beats NC State, what everyone would do to my co-host on my right.
I don't want to even.
We'd cancel Orange Pulp that week. There'd be no Orange Pulp. We'd have to.
No, we would make sure there was an Orange Pulp.
Oh God!
And just have audio sounds the entire game. It was just top plays. But
I don't want to think about that.
On that, moving into basketball, where Syracuse is not out of the running for a national title, but is far from the favorite. 66-1 odds to win the national title, according to Vegas. How do you see them possibly stacking up? We touched a little bit on it last week about where they can make the tournament and how ranking. Coming off a bad season last year, they had their own postseason ban, but you knew that was coming anyway.
Right.
What do you see possibly getting through the season? And then the first exhibition game is tomorrow.
Right. And hopefully, Lemoyne doesn't wake up the echoes, because I believe it was 2009 when they beat Syracuse in an exhibition game here at the Dome. So you would not want to see the season start off that way for them. I know Zach and I are doing our previews for Scout.com, actually getting them ready this week so they can be put up on the web. But as far as asking, where Syracuse is going to go, I kind of looked at their record this year of what it could be, and I know they play, I think it's about 31 games or something like that.
It's 31, yeah.
Is it 31? Yeah. And I see them at about 21-10, that kind of a season where they're going to win their 20 games. But as we've talked previously, when you look at their schedule, there is that stretch around Thanksgiving and early December that's going to be very difficult for them. Then you've got
for Atlantis
the battle for Atlantis.
And they've got Wisconsin coming here to the Dome.
Wisconsin here and at Georgetown.
Yeah.
And Georgetown's always one of those teams that kind of late in the Big East season starts to rise up the top 25 rankings, and then is like usually anywhere between a 7 through a 10 seed in the tournament. Yeah. So, projecting ahead, if I was going to put Syracuse in the tournament right now, having them not play a game, just looking at their schedule, I'm going to put them somewhere between a 6 to an 11 seed, where they're going to finish somewhere in the maybe upper tier of the ACC, but not too high. And then I could even see them being out in Dayton for that first 4, being one of those early like 11 versus 11 matchups, or maybe a 8 versus 8 play-in kind of situation.
Do you think that happens with how big Syracuse's name is? Because when you look at those games, they generally don't go to the perceived powerhouses.
Well, I mean, North Carolina State played in one of those first 4 games a couple of years ago. One of them. No, it was last year.
Well, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they got in that way and then won a couple games, too. Got all the way to the regionals here in Syracuse.
Yeah, it was one of the most exciting games I have ever seen.
If you lose in that game, did you really make the tournament?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They say that.
Agreed, but I just... first round, it's still the first round is that first day of 16. If they haven't locked the brackets yet, it hasn't started the first round, but continue.
Yeah. So, I don't think that they're above putting a perceived powerhouse like Syracuse in there. But I'm kind of along the same lines of Tim, working on my season preview. I think I put them at 22-9. And I think that a really tough stretch for them is going to be those 9 games that Boeheim's not there, because they've got some really, really difficult games. They've got UNC coming here to the Dome. Right now, they're number 1 in several preseason rankings. They've got to go to Duke. They've got Pittsburgh, which they're expected to be pretty okay this year, like they always are with, who was that, Jamie Dixon?
Yeah, Jamie Dixon, yeah.
And then Miami, who a couple of years ago they were good. Last year, not so much.
Yeah, Jim Larinaga does a good job with Miami, even at his age. He really gets the respect of his players. But I was looking at their schedule. Their road schedule in conference is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
They're at Pittsburgh. They're at Virginia. They're at Duke. They play North Carolina twice, so they're there. Notre Dame does come here, but Notre Dame has a lot of success here at the Dome often as well. So I was just looking at that ACC schedule saying, oh, man, some of those road games are during that suspension.
Yeah.
And not only that, just even if Coach Boeheim was the head coach at that point in time, those would be tough games to win too. So the ACC gauntlet may be the time where things really get tough for them.
See, that's the thing I think about the ACC in general, is that it's so brutal. There are so many good teams. It's hard for a team to be that good. And to go 16-2, 15-3 in the ACC, that just proves how dominant that team is.
And that's the way the Big East used to be. Like you'd play West Virginia on a Saturday afternoon and turn around Big Monday, you're playing Louisville or you're playing Villanova or Pittsburgh
or
at the time. UConn, exactly. So this ACC in a lot of ways now mirrors some of that like mid-90s, early 2000s Big East that was just brutal to play your season schedule.
Just a random thought. With you mentioning UConn, why is UConn not in the ACC? Why have they not been invited in?
Because what are they going to do for football?
What is Syracuse going to do for football? They're just the same level as us. And when you think basketball program, you think UConn.
Yeah.
And you think ACC. That is a basketball conference. They're known for great women's soccer. UConn's got a good women's soccer team. They won their league.
Yeah.
You have
you
have the number 1 basketball program for women's sports. You have the good basketball program, and they have a decent, okay football team. It's nothing. I just don't understand it because that's a Big East. It's just one of those things that stands out and confuses me.
Yeah, it's always UConn has definitely been one of those teams where I'm like, well, the ACC should just invite them in because now that
you get a big market, you're near New York.
Yeah, and now that the ACC has expanded all the way up here, so that it's not just like southeast, a little bit above the Mason-Dixon line. It just, I don't know. It's one of those teams that I've always thought that UConn would be a natural fit, but apparently the ACC just doesn't like something about the Huskies.
It almost seems like there's something personal. But sorry for the random train of thought. It was just, you mentioned UConn in the Big East, and I'm just thinking, why are they not in the ACC right now? They're in the American.
Well, how many teams are in the ACC right now?
Well, there's 15 in the ACC
There's
right
15,
now.
so that would make it like
an even number,
16, which kind of makes sense. But I think, again, once you start getting up to 16, now you're like turning yourself into a pro league because you're getting way too big.
Well, I personally think 15 is too many.
I do too. I used to like when they were like 10 and maybe 12.
Breaking news right now as we're talking ACC. Just got an update from Bleacher Report. ACC announces suspension of officiating crew for 2 games due to 4 errors on the final play of Saturday's Miami versus Duke game.
4 errors on the final play.
That is what we'll be previewing and talking about that. That obviously the biggest finish of the night on back-to-back-to-back weeks of crazy special teams ending plays to have one team win, one team lose. Obviously, that was great analysis right there as I was saying and just going, one team wins, yes, the other team loses. But just iconic change of pace. So we wanted to give you that, but back into Syracuse basketball.
Well, but Brian, let me just touch on that real quick. Remember what Sean McDonough and Chris Spielman were saying? I don't know if you watched the Syracuse game yesterday, but how bad they felt.
One of my favorite people.
Yeah, and they both thought, and it wasn't Homer stuff for Syracuse in McDonough's case or just in the sense of the game. The officiating crew they thought was brutal, and the amount of time it took to review plays, and I know it took 9 minutes to review the end of the Duke-Miami game. So,
well, you look back at the Pittsburgh game last week. It was like they'd throw a flag and they'd say, "Oh no, I'm going to pick that up."
We're just going to do that. We're just going to do a quick little switch into college football, just wrapping up with...
Yeah, they still haven't played yet. Syracuse hasn't played basketball, so we can shift right into
football.
So
we're just going to shift into college football. I figured we're going there. Might as well do it right now. You're listening to Orange Pulp. Once again, if you haven't subscribed to our page, you're clearly on YouTube. Just scroll down a little bit, click the subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at OrangePulp1. So in the game we just kind of talked about, just the update coming in, Miami's crazy win over Duke with 8 laterals. And now, what do you make of the first decision? I know it's one of those instant things, but this is the world of live.
Yeah, you're right. When I watched that play, I was just, wow. There were several times when I watched it that I thought, oh, he's down. No, he's not. Okay. Oh, they're still going. And he has just defeated, Duke at the time, going into the game, they were number 1 in the Coastal Division.
Top 25 team.
Top 25 team. And, it's one of those things that in a case like that where they go back and review it and say, you know what, they made a lot of errors on that play. It's too bad that they can't just reverse the ending of the game and say, you know what, Duke won.
I see that, but it's also one of those post-play things, and I get it. But if 9 minutes to review and still no one decided this wasn't down, we were watching again because we were just running around going, someone pull up a replay of this play. Someone pull up a replay. Because we wanted to just keep seeing it because we couldn't believe it, and it was like running around, and the photo ended up getting taken of 3 of us who were there watching the thing going just bromance. And just of us trying to figure out this
I'm glad
play.
I wasn't there for the bromance. I'm glad you guys had it.
It was one of those plays, and I just take the TV over, and I'm like, we're going to this. It was just one of those weird, crazy things. How do you miss that after 9 minutes of replay and then so many ideas saying he's got to be down?
I think early it did look like he was down. I don't know how many laterals they had completed at that point in time.
Well,
I do want to say, maybe the referees screwed up, but I'm so proud of the event staff at Duke, because they made sure that no band was on the field for this controversy. Exactly. So there was no repeat of Cal Stanford, which was great.
Hey, let's not forget, trucking the trombone player was one of the greatest things ever.
That was. I mean, that was World Wrestling entertainment right on top of that.
And we got a wrestling.
Which, you know what? Just oddly enough, there's a guy right now. His name's Xavier Woods. Dude,
oh, come on.
Day rocks. And he carries a trombone with him to the ring. So, yeah, that's funny that WWE and trucking the trombone player. So, yeah, there's a
it all comes
there.
back to WWE.
Yes, I tried watching, and I don't know whether I'll be doing that again. Clemson wins, and after the team that just trucked Miami, they won again, 56-41, over a team you might be familiar with, Zach.
I might have heard of the Wolfpack a little bit, yeah.
What? They kind of hung with them. It was only a 15-point loss.
You're right. And honestly, it was
a defensive struggle.
Yeah, 56-41. That was a defensive battle there. I'm kind of surprised that the Wolfpack hung in there as much as they did, because I really think that Clemson, over the past couple of weeks, I've said right now Clemson's my favorite to win the national championship. And so I'm really proud of my Wolfpack. Glad we hung in there, but
you knew it was coming.
Yeah, it was one of those losses that it was one of those games that I'd circled and said, well, that's a loss.
With a game like this so close, is this a cause for concern? Now, I know it's still 15 points.
Right.
But is this a cause for concern that they gave up 41, or is it just it's hard to get up for every week after you just did a thumping of Miami and they're just going to keep rolling to the playoffs?
I think some of that's part of it. But I think the other piece that I look at is something feels different about Clemson this year. I don't know what it is. I mean, there's still weeks for them to do what they normally do, but I just feel like there's something there. Brian, give us this. I know you want to give us a update.
Always go on the updating information. Just got another update from Bleacher Report on the NFL team stream. Colts Andrew Luck. We've all thought he's been hurt and he's been out, and his play hasn't been going. Multiple fractured ribs since week 3, according to Fox Sports. So that might explain
coming right into play.
That might explain why he's been not as good as Andrew Luck. We'll be talking NFL in a little bit. Just want to give up-to-date news. Continue on.
Like I was saying, so if something feels different about Clemson this year, and I don't know, it still gives them time to sort of lose critical games. But I know we'll get into who we kind of think are our 4 teams for the college football playoff. But with the recent injuries, arrests, and things related to Baylor and Ohio State, Clemson may just be that team in a year that just kind of survives. And like you said, you crush Miami. It's hard to get up the next week for another team. But the only concern I would say is if you are, it's Sweeney is the head coach at
David
Clemson.
Sweeney,
yeah. If you are Coach Sweeney, I would just simply say to these guys, look, we got another win. This is what we needed to keep kind of rolling along. But at the same time, boys, you got to get up week in and week out. And NC State is significantly better than Miami. I don't care what happened in Miami-Duke game. They are better than them this year. And so I think that's what that message is. And if I was him, we're preparing immediately for our next opponent. I don't think they have a bye. But
So I just pulled up their schedule. Their remaining 4 games at home against Florida State next week. Huge game.
Yeah.
Huge game.
That's at home, so that should be fine.
Here at
and also depends on what Cook and
You're right. Here at Syracuse, at home against Wake Forest, and at South Carolina. They could very easily win all 4 of those games.
they could.
And so, I'm a big fan of the Tigers this year, as I've said. But you're right. I think that the message that you're saying that Sweeney needs to be telling his team is you've got to be able to get up for this game. You've got to go out there and play your hardest.
Or simply just turn the page. Hey, boys, we got the Seminoles coming up this week. Whatever happened against NC State doesn't even matter. Now we've got our mini Super Bowl, at least at this point in the season. So
you escaped with the win, and that's really what you need. You touched on it a little bit. JT Barrett and his suspension, suspended for 1 game for a DUI arrest. What do you make of it?
It's an OVI.
Is that what they call it in Ohio?
Operating a vehicle while impaired. That's what he was arrested for.
I thought it was Ohio vehicle idiot or something like that. I didn't really make sense of what that acronym
Pennsylvania,
was.
you have DUI. New York, you have DWI. There's all, but it's the...
Well, in North Carolina, you can get a DUI or a DWI.
I think in New York you can have both, too,
You can get
can't
both,
you?
but it's DUI is, I believe, under drugs. DWI is in driving while intoxicated for alcohol. I believe that's the thing. Don't need to worry about that because, well, I would be getting killed by my parents had I done that. So, but that's happening, and we'll see. Now Cardell Jones, JT Barrett gets the starting job. Now Cardell Jones is going to get it back.
Funny enough, Cardell Jones was the one that bailed him out.
Is that true?
Yeah.
That's part of the report.
I did not know that.
Maybe they're a package deal. They're a package deal, we play together, we get arrested together. And
Cardell just being like, you're going to sit in jail. You're going to bleep and
How
rot.
did he bail him out? How did he bail him out? I wonder if Urban Meyer said, here's tickets for every guy that works at the police station for when we play in
This is
the
all
Big Ten
speculating.
title.
Don't be
this
reporting.
isn't real,
This is a joke. This is just tongue-in-cheek. Just want to make sure that's out there.
Yeah.
In Big Ten play, Iowa keeps winning. And Tim asked the question, can they crash the party in the Big Ten? Since you asked it on pre-show meeting, do you think they can?
If they're anything like Ohio State was last year, when not that people didn't think Ohio State was a good team, but I just didn't think they expected them to win the Big Ten title game over Wisconsin in that fashion. I think the thing about the Big Ten conference is depending upon the division that you're in, it really determines your schedule. But just to make a comparison to something else we're going to talk about later on, who would have expected the Mets to win the World Series or to get in the World Series this year?
And so they did not win the World Series.
And they're not going to win it probably. But so I kind of look at Iowa in the same way in the sense that sometimes when no one expects you, you really band together and you start winning and you get just on this high and you just keep going and going and going. So I can't really say where Iowa's going to finish, but at least right now they're being talked about. They're ranked. Are they close to the top 10 in their rankings?
They're
right
in
now?
the top 10.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the season, what that is it? Do they do East-West now in the Big Ten? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, they got rid of the leaders and legends.
Yeah, so that Western Division doesn't really
Worst
have
name ever.
a lot of strength. I mean, who are the other teams? Nebraska is a down program. Minnesota is not really a great
Wisconsin's
program.
not as good
Wisconsin's not what they were last year. And so maybe Iowa gets that confidence and they can kind of crash the party in the sense of just being another team that you got to think about in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Notre Dame at Temple. Notre Dame wins on a last-minute drive now. Temple still got a chance to get the ball back, but Notre Dame coming out with a huge win at Temple, and one of those games where it was Temple had the lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. It was one of those weird things where I almost didn't even realize that Temple was a ranked team until just a couple of weeks ago when everybody was like, oh, have you heard about the Owls? No, I haven't.
Remember how they beat Penn State in the first week, and I was as critical as anyone against Penn State going, yeah, you guys are terrible. Well, until that game, they were undefeated.
Yeah. And I think that Notre Dame, however you say it. How do you guys say that?
I say
it
Notre
depends.
Dame.
Are you French because it's Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
But because that's how the French say it, I specifically don't say it that way.
Oh,
I think over the age of 75, sorry for any of our elder listeners, over the age of 75 will give you kind of that Notre Dame. But then anybody under that,
The Irish.
Notre Dame.
Okay, so
don't worry. So however you pronounce it.
I went
okay.
to Notre Dame High School, and we called it Notre Dame. So I'm going to go with that.
Okay, so Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the country. I know that, Tim, you might actually be thinking about putting them in the playoff.
Yeah, they were one of my sleepers, I think.
Yeah, right there
when
with
I
you.
mentioned them. So
Well, that's coming up in
They're
just
in
the
mix.
very next part of our segment.
Yeah.
Here on Orange Pulp.
It's a nice little plug there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but I think that the Fighting Irish are pretty good. Well, obviously they're pretty good, and I have no idea where this thought's going.
And that's how we're going to get out of that segment.
that's right.
Okay, so Notre Dame's good. Temple a lot better than we expected coming in this
Temple
season.
is a lot better than I expected them to be, because Temple is not one of those teams that you're like, oh, that's a traditional powerhouse. You don't even think that about basketball anymore. Used to be, you would think.
Well,
Temple
when John
basketball.
Chaney was coaching, you know, and you knew they were playing the 2-3 matchup, just like Syracuse played the 2-3 zone. They were famous for that. But yeah, football has never really been Temple's forte. I remember they were in the Big East for a while. Then they dropped out of the Big East and went to the Atlantic 10, and then they were back into this American Conference. So it's really weird for them. But I think the bigger storyline actually was Brian Kelly nearly choking one of his assistant coaches. I don't know if any of you saw that highlight. I saw it this morning really quick, and I'm not sure what the issue was. They suspect maybe he was barking at the officials or something, and Kelly didn't want any of his assistant coaches talking to the officials. But that is not something that you want to have happening on the sidelines, especially at Notre Dame, where all eyes are on you.
But if your assistant coach won't shut up and it's going to draw a flag and it's going to cost you a football game, choke away, my friend, choke away. When it comes to obviously not choking, but you got to stop him if the coach won't shut up. The weirdest thing out of that is, who's the biggest star to come out of Temple now that we can't really reference Bill Cosby? Who is the,
Well, you just did.
Well, but I mean, I can, I'm not saying, but you know how it would have been Bill Cosby's alma mater.
Yeah.
Who's the person now? Kevin Nagandi?
I don't know.
Is that who we reference? Kevin Nagandi, Sports Center analyst.
Oh, yeah.
Is that who we reference?
That's going
now?
to take a Google search, I think.
Okay, but that just tells you where we're thinking on the Temple radar.
Maybe our guest, Mackenzie, who's quiet, could do that Google search quick.
Yes,
we can
go,
come back
Squirtle,
to it.
go. I choose you. College football playoff pick is clearly Temple's not going to be in it because them losing their one game from a non-Power 5 conference. Who do you got, Zach?
Who do I got? I got number 1, Clemson. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, I'm going to go with
Building suspense.
I'm going to go with TCU. Number 4, LSU.
And I'm still going to really make you mad, Brian, because I still have those 2 Big 12 teams in there.
I've got a question for you.
Well, all right, give me your question.
It got pointed out to me that maybe I'm misconstruing it wrong. Are you saying this is your top 4 right now, or are you saying this is your 4 projected to make it?
I look at it as a week-to-week thing for me. Who's my top 4 right now? Like if they had to end the season today.
Okay. See, because I always think, because I would obviously not be putting Alabama in my top 4 right now, but since I think they're going to beat LSU, I do it as a projection of what I think is going to happen.
I guess I kind of treat it the same way the committee does. So if they're doing it every week, then
I'm
doing it every week.
Okay, then I can. It got pointed out to me that maybe I'm misconstruing it wrong, so I can accept.
I don't believe that you would misconstrue.
Well, Tim, if that's how you think about it, maybe you should get a vote on the college football playoff.
Yeah. Well, maybe Archie,
the person,
Pat Hayden, he stepped down, so they're looking for somebody.
Last year they should have called me when Archie Manning got sick and no longer could be a part of the committee. But so right now, if I'm looking at it, if the season ended today, I'd have.
Regis Philbin for Temple.
Regis.
Yep.
But you know what? Regis is a huge Notre Dame fan, though.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, and of course when
Frank
Gifford was alive and his friendship with Kathy Lee, they were more Notre Dame.
Kids went there.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's even talking about his Owls. I don't know if he's waving his arms for 24 hours like the Owl mascot does during basketball and football games. I don't know if you've noticed that.
But back to the top 4.
So my top 4, again, I don't really know who I'd have playing who, but I just know that within that group of 4, I'd have, still Ohio State, because I don't think that this DUI situation or OVI situation is really going to affect them long term. Baylor, we now know the quarterback is injured, correct?
Yeah, Seth Russell is out.
Seth Russell's hurt. So I feel like that they're still there because they had a bye this week. They didn't play anybody.
No, you're right.
But very quickly, they're going to be falling out. And then I think TCU becomes the survivor out of the Big 12. And then, of course, I have Clemson in there right now, too. So 2 Big 12 teams in Baylor and TCU, a Big 10, Ohio State, and an ACC in Clemson.
See, Seth Russell getting hurt, that's the reason that I've taken Baylor out, because I do the projections.
Yeah.
And without him, sure, they can probably just plug somebody in there and make it work. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that they're going to go the rest of the way.
And this hasn't been a strong year. I don't think either. The teams that have remained in the 4 have kind of been there, like I think I said yesterday on our show, have been there for several weeks.
Yeah.
And then now you're seeing some things happen, and it's like, whoa, could there be 2 or 3 different teams that we haven't even talked about in the first handful of weeks that are now all of a sudden part of this group of 4 that will get into the playoff? I don't know. It doesn't just seem like there's a year with a dominant team. And so I guess we'll find out as the season wraps up and the conference championship games are played around Thanksgiving. So
my top 4 is, as it was exactly last week, Ohio State, Baylor, Bama, Clemson. I think they just plug and play for Baylor. That's why I keep them in there. And then I think Alabama's going to beat LSU next week, which I'm so excited for that game. Late kick, not the 3:30 kick, so that'll be a little fun. Now, in transition to that playoff, getting ready for the NFL, and we had a game this morning where Kansas City just ran rumshot and Detroit looked terrible, so not really much need to talk about that game.
Detroit
much more
was maybe
than that.
having shots of rum. That's kind of the
that was
there.
Very possible. Bengals at Steelers. Looks like Big Ben's going to be back.
Good for him. Glad to see that he's healthy again. He's one of those guys I like to watch him play. Not saying that I really respect him, but I think that he, especially like what he did his rookie year, coming in, nobody really talking about him that much, and just taking over that team.
And really being with his, 2 Super Bowl victories.
Yeah, he's got 2.
Probably a Hall of Fame quarterback, potentially, that no one would have even said when he first came in the league.
I mean, coming in from Miami of Ohio, not really one of those guys that you're like, yeah, that's a future Hall of Famer, right?
He was one of the not future Hall of Famer, but he was he was.
I think it was like number 11.
It was because it was him. Eli was
Eli was number 1.
1. Phillip Rivers in that
4.
massive trade.
Yeah.
And then he was part of that class where all 4 of them, I swear, I still say to this day, if Phillip Rivers actually has a kicker, he's got a lot more playoff success.
Yeah.
And don't play New England in the playoffs.
That's true.
And Phillip Rivers, you got to remember.
The Bolo Tate and the
NC
State
alumni.
Yeah. The fun fact, NC State has 2 legit quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, we've got 3 if you count Mike Glennon.
I said 2 legit.
Oh, well.
But now, in the other one, Seahawks at Cowboys. Oh, Des Bryant's back and another injury update, but without Romo, do the Cowboys have a chance?
Their quarterback situation has just been such a struggle this year. Certainly picking up Matt Castle late, Matt was great with the Patriots that one year, but nothing's really been outstanding since. A little success with the Chiefs, but not a whole lot afterwards. I was listening to some things on the way into the show, actually, and they happened to talk about this game, Seahawks-Cowboys, and which team is more at risk. And actually right now I feel like the Seahawks are really more at risk because if they do happen to blow this game, okay, the Rams are a tough team in their division, and so are the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, they've got a much more of an uphill climb to reach that wild card position. If Dallas loses, it's another one of those issues again for Dallas where they just can't seem to put it together. But that's my phone ringing on air, which shouldn't happen. But because they play in that NFC East, where like the Giants will win 2 games and then they'll lose a game, or the same thing with Philly, they'll look miserable one week and then the next week they'll look really good. And of course, Washington is their own worst enemy. They can find a way to still somehow sneak in the playoffs in that division. So more is on the line for Seattle this week than I think for Dallas.
Sunday Night Football, Packers at Broncos. The Broncos defense is so good, but so is Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is really, again, I'm going to be totally biased here about Tom Brady being the best quarterback in the league, but if I was just going to say let's even them up, it's going to be Rodgers and Brady are your 2 best. But I think for Green Bay, you're going to go up against a good defense in Denver, and it's going to be in Denver. And I know Peyton Manning is struggling. He's showing his age. I heard somebody say earlier this week that when he throws, he can't really even feel the football anymore. So maybe
he's lost all feeling in his fingertips.
But he's had that this entire time in Denver.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think this is a critical game.
55 touchdown year. Yeah.
Coming off a bye for Green Bay, I believe, because they didn't play last week. And then going to Denver, they've got one of the tougher schedules in the NFL this year. The Packers do.
Yeah.
And
I think it's funny that when you mention that, I think it's funny that a lot of people are talking about the possibility of Green Bay possibly going undefeated this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you compare the schedules that the Patriots and the Packers have. Patriots have a much easier schedule.
I could argue that their toughest games were
are
2 of the
them.
3 games. Well, they have Denver.
Yeah, they have to go to Denver too. Yeah,
2 of the 3 toughest games they've already happened.
Yeah.
So the team that we all know you want to talk about, Indianapolis Colts versus Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football.
On Monday Night Football. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, we'll see how much we can see as we're covering the Lemoyne game, so it's going to be a rush from the Lemoyne game. Turn on the radio, listen to it on the way home, then watch the game when we get there.
Yeah, and I'll be writing a Scout.com article about the Lemoyne game. So, yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You got a busy night.
It'll be a busy night. I am so happy with how the Panthers are playing this year. I think they're surprising a lot of people. And it's sort of one of those things where I thought that they were going to be good. I think I told one of you two. I think I told you, Tim. I said the Panthers are going to the Super Bowl this year.
No.
You probably told me that then.
I think.
But you can see I don't really remember it because when I heard it, I was like, no, Carolina, come on.
Yeah, but
now you got to believe.
Look at it and you say, well, there's a legitimate chance there. Because you look at the rest of the teams in the NFC. The Packers. Who else?
Arizona.
Yeah, but Arizona, you're right, Brian, Arizona, but they still got to prove a lot, too. And I think Arizona hasn't reached that elite level that they had hoped to in previous years. So, and Atlanta has a great record. Yeah, I think they're 6-1, but we don't know who Atlanta really is yet. So, Carolina's got a nice little path.
You look at Carolina, you look at the Panthers, and you say, well, the only thing that's really holding them back is who is Cam Newton throwing the ball to?
Yes, but I also see, as great as Cam Newton can be, and he has progressed a lot in the fourth quarter. The first 3 quarters have not been pretty if you look statistically wise. But he's been a boss in the fourth quarter. But with all the shots he's going to take, there's going to come a time in a key situation, whether it's the end of the season or in the playoffs, 3rd down and 7, down by 4, need to pick up the first down. Those accumulation of hits add up where it's just so much. Yeah. Then he's got to step back and throw. And like you said, who is he throwing to? Apart from Greg Olsen, they've got Ted Bleepin Ginn Jr. as his primary target.
I know.
But you can make that same argument, though, with New England over the years. I'm not going to say Cam Newton is Tom Brady, but, eventually when Tom Brady retires, Cam Newton's going to be one of those guys that's probably going to be in that conversation of who's the best quarterback right now. And
think I can go that far as saying it.
But I mean, you can make some receivers out of nothing, depending upon your schemes and what you run.
You look at it and you say, well, obviously Tom Brady is the best in the game today.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers,
right there with him.
Right there
you
with
can
him.
argue Rodgers is better than Brady right now.
Yeah.
But
you could do that, and I would have let you argue that. So that's okay.
So I can go either way.
Oh, Tim would have actually let you argue that.
I would have.
That's
No, I would have.
Some Patriots fans won't.
Yeah. You say Peyton Manning, maybe not. Look at the season that he's having, and it's not pretty. But after that, I mean, who comes in before Cam Newton?
I think you put him on a level with like a Matt Ryan, maybe even an Eli Manning, but he's showing consistency. No, but listen, but Newton's showing consistency now
In
that
the
some of
fourth
those
quarter.
guys can't show
He
on a
has
regular
the
basis, which
lowest
is separating
completion
him.
percentage of his career, which I get comes to his receivers. He's had less rushing yards each year. Each year, rushing yards have gone down and rushing touchdowns have gone down each year, which is what his biggest factor is. Now you take away his primary receiving. That defense is boss.
Oh yeah,
There's
the
no
defense
argument.
is awesome. You look at Josh Norman. Oh my God, he said the other day. He said, I'm kind of sad that nobody's throwing the ball at me anymore.
Richard Sherman treatment right there.
Yeah, Kwan Short. He just won NFC Defensive Player of the Month. Mm-hmm. When you've got and you've still got Luke Kuechly back there, you look at that and you say, man, that defense is going to take them a long way. The defense has definitely kept that team in a lot of games.
I think on Monday night we're going to see a little clip from Remember the Titans. Do you remember that piece where the coach said, "I don't want to see them gain another yard"?
I do remember
and
that.
I wonder how many yards the Colts are actually going to gain on Monday night.
Yeah.
Their total offense won't be like Florida State was yesterday, over 600 yards. I think they may only get like 60 yards, especially with a hurt Luck.
I would rather have Andrew Luck than Cam Newton in a heartbeat. Though.
I would rather have a healthy Cam Newton than a hurt Andrew Luck. Because
how healthy over the course of a season is he going to be with how many hits he takes? Now, don't get me wrong, Andrew Luck gets destroyed because his offensive line is terrible, and this took so much longer, and the internal clock in me has been screaming for the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
But I've wanted to have this conversation. But do you want to do a little quick wrap-up on what you guys want, so I'm not just getting the last word on this? But the internal clock, we've all been going, this needs to end.
Yeah, but this is fair, though, for Zach, because really we haven't given him an NC State minute in weeks, and so now we gave him like a Carolina Panthers 3-minute segment, 5-minute segment. I don't know what it was.
I'm happy about this.
It's payback,
Yeah, I'm happy about
it
this.
works out. We'll try to schedule that in. Now, for your 5 guaranteed picks, who do you got, Tim?
Well, some of it's based on who I have in fantasy, so I've got to go with the Atlanta Falcons because I need big numbers from Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. I really think the Minnesota Vikings. I believe they're playing the Chicago Bears. I don't see them struggling at all with Chicago this week. I got the New Orleans Saints. I do think Seattle's going to come in to Dallas and somehow find a way to win this game. They just have more in them than the Cowboys, and I'm going to really be picking the Carolina Panthers until they lose.
Zach?
So.
Yeah. So my 5 teams, I'm going to go Cardinals over Browns, Steelers over Bengals.
No Ginger Lightning this
No
week.
Ginger Lightning this week. I'm going to go Vikings over Bears like Tim. And I'm going to say Packers take out the Broncos tonight, and the Panthers defeat the Colts.
I'm going to take Houston. I'm just going to always pick against Tennessee after week 1, even though Houston hasn't looked good. Wow, that division's so bad without Andrew Luck being healthy. I'm going to take the Bears over the Vikings. Just one of those things that's got an equivalent. Also, then, as he said, fantasy football, I have Alshon Jeffrey. I would really, really like it. St. Louis Rams, Mr. 8-8 himself, they're facing San Francisco.
I know. I thought about taking them.
Yeah, it's just it's not feeling it. I wanted to take the Bengals, but I couldn't put myself in there. Atlanta Falcons, the one team Tennessee has beaten is Tampa Bay. Falcons take on Tampa Bay, and the Arizona Cardinals over the poop town that is Cleveland Browns. Final thoughts, Tim. Your Tim's takes. What do you got?
Tim's takes. Well, for me, and I'm not going to go on super, super long about this, but obviously no one's paying really loads of attention to the NBA. The NBA doesn't get the attention it deserves until the playoffs and maybe Christmas and maybe a couple other times during the year. But I'm just really impressed with Steph Curry already. People can question defense in the NBA. But early on in the season, sometimes when guys are still hoping that they're, proving to the coach that they're going to make the roster, they do play hard defensively. Now, fortunately for the Golden State Warriors, 2 out of their first 3 games came against the New Orleans Pelicans, who were a playoff team last year, but I'm very suspicious about the Pelicans. But he puts up
Anthony Davis
and pretty much who else? Like maybe an Eric Gordon. They cut Jimmer. That made me a little depressed. But
the Knicks picked him up for their developmental team.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be in Westchester. Maybe we should head down and see him play. But Curry right now, 32.5 points a game. He's had 40 and 53 points against the Pelicans so far, and he hasn't even played 40 minutes in a game. So just the moral of all this story is that, we kind of moved on really quick after the Golden State Warriors won the NBA title, because it was almost like LeBron and the Cavs lost the title, not so much that the Warriors won the title. So I think there's a chip on the shoulder for Golden State and for Steph Curry to validate not only that he was the MVP, but that the Golden State Warriors wasn't just this fluky year. So that's really my take.
Zach zeroing in.
It's funny that Tim was talking about the NBA, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about this week too.
Wow, some NBA here at the end. I like it.
You look at Kevin Durant coming off of, a rough season last year where he was hurt virtually the entire year. And he has come out, and in the second game of the year, in a double overtime game, he plays 53 minutes. I just don't see how that's good coaching. I do
with
not,
a new coach coming in.
Yeah, with Billy Donovan in there as the new coach. I don't like that. I think that sure he's had, however many months to get healthy, but still, I don't like that. You've got to protect one of the best players in the league. Whether this is his last year with the Thunder or whether he's there for the rest of his career. I look at that, and you've got Russell Westbrook, who knows how to score. He's obviously one of those score-first point guards. But I'm not crazy about playing Kevin Durant so heavy right at the beginning of the year. And I don't know if it's partly him saying, hey, I want to be on that floor. I want to be on the court. But I think that's what the coach is for, saying, you know what, you want to be out there, we're looking out for you. You need to come down here and sit on the bench. And another little thing about Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, dropped 40 points apiece the other day. First time that teammates have done that in a game since 1996. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really impressive. That's quite a stat there.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a nugget.
Right.
That's a big nugget. That's a 20-piece nugget from McDonald's is what that is.
So my BA moment.
The BA moment.
I love how it's just become a thing to make fun of it. The day we live in today is we love you till we don't anymore. And we love you coming up. For example, RG3. He's fun. He's new. He's got the fun socks. And now he talks too much. He's too thirsty. We don't like him. JJ Watt. Wow, the dude's a boss. He's just out there. He's crazy. He's insane. He's everywhere. We don't like him anymore.
Who's saying they don't like JJ Watt?
A lot of people, especially after Hard Knocks. Just flip on ESPN Radio for a little bit. Flip on Fox Sports Radio. Flip any of them. He's just too much. He's just everywhere. There's a line we get to, and then it drops. Now, I still love JJ Watt.
I love him.
Wrong. Yeah. Gronk, same thing. I love Gronk.
I never liked Gronk.
I'm a huge Gronkowski fan, but we start to see him too much, and it's going through. In a different vein, real quick, the Nike commercial, amazing. Watch it if you haven't. Snow Day, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And there's great Odell Beckham Jr., who's also in that commercial. He's getting to that point where it's just, and players inside the game just think he's too thirsty. The next person I see, we're all talking about how great Anthony Davis is. And you look at his efficiency numbers, and he's great. Watching him, phenomenal. He's just such a beautiful game to watch and such an amazing person. Then he's going to start getting more and more advertising because he's going to become more and more of a thing. And then he's not going to win a title because the team around in the next few years because the team around him is awful. And the West is stacked. He's going to get to a point, he's going to be the next person that's just too thirsty, and we're not going to like him. And it's just frustrating to get to the point where we love to build you up, until we just don't like you anymore. And it's just one of those things that I wish we could just accept. Media coverage is going to be all over the place, and just enjoy what we can watch and enjoy them play the game and have fun with the commercials, the advertisements, and them just going out there and making the most of what they can do. For Orange Pulp, with on my left, after a flip, we're going to have to switch this back because there was multiple times I wanted to look the opposite direction. We have
We
Tim.
steered the ship, though. We helped you steer the ship.
I'm glad you. Yep, it's the day after Halloween, All Saints
We were
Day,
like-
if I remember.
Yes,
correctly.
All Saints Day.
Yes, ha! Catholic high school coming back to remembering. And Zachary Francis,
We were kind of like a good rowing team today.
row, row, row. Ellen would be so proud of us.
I know. I'm
You're
going to have
listen-
to tell Ellen to listen to the last 2 minutes of the
No,
podcast.
no, you make her listen to the whole thing and say, hey, there's a rowing reference in there, find it. You're listening to Orange Pulp. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Orange Pulp 1. For Zach and Tim, I'm Brian. Have a good one.